So in the last video we brought this shelf in to test it, and we're ready now to set some other parameters for the shelf so that we can turn off this molding if we want to, or we can create a catalog so we don't have to load all the different family types that might be in the family. So I'm going to go back to the shelf unit family. Let's go to let's see here. We're going to go to the 3D view on that. And the first parameter is really easy. We're going to select the piece of molding. And I want to set two things actually. I want to set it so if we don't want the molding at all, we can just turn it off. So that's going to be a parameter that I set here as a visibility parameter. So whenever you want to set a visibility parameter, select the item that you'd like to set, and then the properties will go to, or you'll find the section that's under graphics. It will say visible, and there'll be a checkbox. Instead of using that checkbox, we're going to turn on associated family parameter by clicking on the little button next to that, which will bring up the associate family parameter for visibility yes no parameter. And you see we have no parameter set, so we're going to create a new one. And this has already been set properly. The only thing I'd change here is under group parameter under, I'd group it under the visibility. So go all the way down and find visibility instead of under other. It's just a little bit more specific. And I'm going to name this visibility parameter crown molding. So I'm basically saying, well, let's turn it on and off. Now it might be something we'd want to make as an instance rather than a type. So that I can just turn off the crown molding on one instance of the shelving units instead of every single one and load it in my project that is of the same type. So this one makes sense to be an instance. We'll hit OK, and then that should become an option for us to turn it on and off when we bring it in. The other thing that we might want to consider, so we go into the Revit view on the top. This is a lot of extra line work that we may not want to see in when we're looking at this shelving unit in plan. And in fact, we might want to actually have it represented as just a rectangle, as a symbolic line. So what I'm going to do is select all the entities that we have here that are 3D entities. And we're going to go into view. Let's see here. I might have to do this one thing at a time. So I'll select just the molding. And this is what we're looking for, is the visibility settings. So I want to set the visibility settings so that they're not turned on when we look down on this in plan. And we might also turn off the visibility settings for the molding when it's in coarse detail. We don't need to see the molding, but we might want to see that molding in medium and fine. So we'll hit OK for that. The other pieces that we have, all the shelves and the shelving unit itself, we can do the same thing. So I'm going to go to the 3D view to be able to select those things individually. So I'm going to turn off the shelving unit as well in plan. I'm going to turn off all of the individual shelves. So I'm going to select one shelf, right click, and choose to select all instances visible in view. And this is unfortunate. It looks like we have to do this individually. Let's see if we can, yeah, I might have to do this one at a time by hitting edit group and then select it and turn off its visibility. So I'm going to turn off the plan and then hit finish. I'm just hoping that that did that for the rest of them. We'll find out after opening up the next one. Yep, it did. So we don't have to do that for all of them. So that's taking the one and changing those settings for all of them. So basically what we've done here is we've made it so when we look at this in plan, none of the model features actually show up in plan, which is going to be problematic if we were to leave it like that, because then we'd end up with a shelving unit that disappeared whenever we looked at it in plan. So to correct it, or to simplify what we see in plan, we're going to add, under annotate, a symbolic line with a rectangle that matches the size of the shelving unit. So we're going to make sure we go or snap to our reference planes, and we want those to be locked to our reference planes on all four sides. Now that's going to show up as our shelving unit from the top view. But then when we look at this from an elevation or 3D view, we're going to see all of the solid objects. So we just kind of controlled things visibly one way through parameters and one way through just simplifying what we see in plan. So let's save that and see what that does. So I'm going to load it back into the project that we opened as a dummy project. I want to overwrite the existing version. And this is basically what happened is you can see that I missed something. I missed the back panel to turn it off, but it turned off all the other 3D elements and it just showed the outline of the shelving unit. However, when I go to a 3D view, we can see the shelf unit and it's full 3D features. Because I have this set to medium detail, we are able to see the crown molding. If I change it to coarse detail, however, the crown molding disappears just to simplify the model. But another way to get the crown molding to disappear is to remove it as a feature by selecting the shelf unit, and we can see visibility crown molding. I can turn it off, and that way it doesn't show up even if we're in fine or medium or coarse, because we've made it so we don't want that to be a feature in this particular shelving unit. If we want it back again, we select the shelf and turn it back on again, and that's how a visibility parameter works. So I'm going to make a correction to that top view. When we look down at this in the floor plan, I want that back panel to not show up as well. Or we can make a second set of hidden lines on the inside that show the thickness of the shelf. That's up to the individual creator of the family. So I'm going to select the family and go back into Edit Family, which brings us right back to the view we were in. And I want to select the back panel. There's the back panel. Set the visibility and settings to be turned off in plan. And just to show you what I mean about the hidden line, I'm going to create a symbolic line that will be hidden line, and we'll make that so that it matches the inside edges of the, let's make that a rectangle, the inside edges of the shelving unit, which means I want to snap to, I believe, there to there. And we want to lock that in place. Make sure you're picking the right lock. You don't want to unlock what you've already got locked. There we go. And then we can save it, load it into the project, overwrite the existing view, and now we have a hidden line showing for the inside depth of the shelving unit, but none of the three-dimensional objects are showing. So the last thing that we'll do is set up a catalog for this project so that instead of every single family that we've created in here showing up under our shelving units, there you are. We've got three. We can create a catalog for it. So that's back to our shelving unit. Let's go to the 3D view of the shelving unit. Whoops, wrong 3D view. So we can close the reference file for now. There we go. That's the view I wanted. All right, so to create a catalog, you would go to File, Export, Family Types. And this is going to create a TXT file. The TXT file has to match the name of the actual family file exactly. So notice it says shelf unit -mbc .rfa. This is shelf unit -mbc.txt. So those have to match exactly. So we'll hit save, and I'm going to open up that file by going into where that file is located. I think I've got that 220 folder under Families, Furniture, Shelf Unit. There's the TXT file right there. I'm going to open it so that we can see how it's set up. So this is the syntax, if you will, of how it's going to extract this information about our family, and we can actually add more sizes to this if we know what we're doing. So I'm going to fix this a little bit by changing the format so it word wraps, and then let me just explain what we're reading here. All right, we'll just do one thing at a time. Put it right there, I think. Okay, so the first piece here, shelf width, pound length, pound feet, is the first number that we come to here. So shelf width is this number right here. Then shelf unit width, length and feet here is matching that number. And then shelf unit height, length and feet is that number. And then shelf unit depth, length and feet is this number. And then we have shelf quantity set to other. It shows the quantity of shelves we have here. And then shelf depth, length, feet is the next number, and so on. So you just have to match, like this the first piece here, this is the name of the type, and that comes up automatically and gets listed. And then the next part is the sizes of that type listed across. Okay, so we're going to create another type in here by understanding how to use this. And I don't have to necessarily have everything listed in here. So the things I really want to be able to control for shelf length, width, and height is just these three parameters: the depth, the width, and the height. So this would be, this is our shelf width, but this is our shelf unit width. We were looking for shelf unit height, and we're looking for shelf unit depth, those three right there. So I could edit this and get rid of a few of these parameters up here, but for now I'm going to leave it the way it is, and we're just going to add a new parameter. So just to show you how this works. So I'm going to add another parameter for a 12-inch shelf. Notice there's 2 inch mark symbols. Let's change the width of the shelf to 24 inches. Put 2 inch marks. We'll make this 5 feet, so we'll do 60 inches. And then I'm going to put a comma in here, and the first unit should be, or the first value should be the shelf width value, which is the width of the shelf minus 1.5 inches, which is what we're seeing written here is decimal feet. So the width of the shelf, we take the width of the shelf, I have at 2 feet or 24 inches minus 1.5 inches is 22.5 inches. Just take that 22.5 and divide by 12, and we have 1.875 feet, decimal feet. So I'm going to type that in here, 1.875. And then I don't have to add all those zeros, that's fine. I'm going to put a comma, and then we put in what we're actually going to have for shelf width, which is 2 feet. I'm just going to put a couple of zeros in so that we keep track of where we are in space here. And the next number, the 6, is our, you have to pay attention to where we are here. We're at, this is 1, this is 2, and then this shelf unit height we had set to 60 inches, so that should be 5 decimal feet. And then shelf unit depth is 1 foot. And then shelf quantity is, see how the 4, 3, 5, this one would be 4 because it's 5 minus 1, so we're going to set that to 4. And then we have of shelf depth, which is 1 foot minus the 3/4 of an inch. So it should be the same value as this. I can just copy and paste it. And then we have first shelf height. We're going to keep the same. Distance between shelves we're going to keep the same. And crown molding other we're going to keep the same, which is a visibility of 1. So we'll just copy and paste those down to the next level. So this should create for us a new catalog value that isn't in the original family. So I'm just going to save it and close it. And we're going to try this out. Okay, so also keep this in the same location as the family file. So we'll minimize that. So in order to test this, I'm going to go back to our 3D view of our house model. And I'm going to delete the shelf unit that we have and purge it from this model. So to purge things, you go to Manage. We go under Purge Unused. Always, always, always hit Check None here so that says 0 before you get started. And then I want to go under Furniture Families, and I want to get rid of this shelf unit right here because we're no longer using it, so that we can start from scratch. So we no longer have that shelf unit in here. Now I'm going to go to Architecture, Component. I want to load the shelf unit that we had in that. Notice the TXT file doesn't show up here, but that's because it's only looking for Revit files. When I hit Open, we get a catalog, including the one we created ourselves at the bottom here. And I can pick all of these items in the catalog or just a couple. So I'm going to pick the two 60-inch wide shelves, one at 24 and one at 36 inches. Just to show you how this works, we'll hit OK. And then it's just going to pick one of the two to set the shelf unit at. I'm going to set the 24, and we can place it. We can select the shelf and turn off the crown molding for that one. I can add another shelf unit, put it next to this one, leave the crown molding on that one, maybe change it to a different size. If I wanted another size completely, I'd have to go in and open that family again, or load it rather again into this folder file by going into Component and loading Family. That's the only way we can activate the catalog, but you can see that catalogs can become very useful in reducing the amount of family types that we include in a file when we don't need all of them.